You don't happen to have a manual for this, do you? Should I try to pull over and see if it's for sale? I'm on a mission from LA to San Diego County to pick up the next donor for the Bike Builds episode. I actually found this one on a web forum, and I talked with the guy last night, got a little 411 on it. Basically, it's a half-open project. He was looking to build a performance RC31 style Honda Hawk. Hasn't had the time to finish it, so I'm gonna pick up where he left off, strip the thing down, reassess it, and I'm excited. I always have a good time when I get out of the house and pick up a new motorcycle, new project of any type, bring it home in the van. Hey, what's up, man?
So this is the project.
Okay.
It is a project.
Yep.
It ran when I got it. I was planning on taking the motor out, taking the fuel pump off, probably putting a different subframe on it.
Yeah.
It's like, I just pieced it back together.
This is a Triumph shock. And you did have this fitted on there. And this is CBR 600 forks. Pretty excited to crack into this thing too, just because some of the projects that I've seen on how these can turn out, like it'd be the perfect lightweight bike. So mission accomplished. I'm headed back north to LA. I have the perfect donor Hawk GT in the back of this thing. Got a great deal for what it is, 1,500 bucks. It's kind of part way there in some degrees, but it needs to be gone through completely. So I'm just excited to get back to Garage 93 and tear into this thing this weekend. So I just got back from picking up the Honda Hawk yesterday, formerly known as the RC31. Really cool history behind this motorcycle. It was ahead of its time in performance. It was a co-developed program with both HRC and Elf Racing in France, and it was underappreciated. It was only made from 88 to 91. I've kind of always had an attraction to these motorcycles. It's been cooler than the common, 650 V-twins that we have out there today. So got the CT off the stand this morning, got this thing up in here, and I'm gonna switch up the build order just a little bit. Since I'm embarking on somebody else's half-complete project, I wanna diagnose a couple things before I tear it apart completely. I trust the seller who I got it from. I know it was in running condition. Right now, it needs a couple things to get it started, but I'm at least just gonna see if I can turn it over, check compression, get a little trust in the motor before I tear it down completely. The fuel tank, moderately freshly repainted, but it's completely rusted inside. I'm just trying to get a little bit of fuel in the bowl of the carburetor. Carburetors, dual. This might fire off. As I go into the next step of washing the thing and tearing it down, I know that this motor runs and starts, so it's a good base for me to continue working forward. That's a relief. That's a relief for sure. What we would call this formally is a snake's wedding. Absolute biggest pet peeve on this thing is, you know how there's metric and there's standard? Same size head, not same pitch of thread. There's a lot of hardware in this bike that was from the hardware store and is standard, which means all those threads are ruined. So I'll either have to drill out, re-tap, or hopefully chase the threads with a metric tap. But that's the beauty of picking up a project secondhand. Nice work. So another fresh day here in the shop, getting the build sheet framework all dialed in, washed the bike, assessed it, saw directionally where I want it to go, and I get to tear the thing down completely today. Yeah, another tear down day for bike builds. First street bike for bike builds. Stoked. So the tank on this has had a rough life. We got to give it a spa treatment. I stripped the top, I stripped the bottom. I'm going to take a second look at some of these repairs that were already made here. I also am gonna have to strip the rust out of the inside and then do a 2-part epoxy treatment so I can keep my fuel system running clean. Because we gotta strip everything down before we can build it up.
The puddle.
The puddle, it's okay. Ugh, a lot of work, huh? Fresh day here in the shop with the RC31, where we left off at. We got most things taken apart and got my eyes on the inner details for the first time. Some things looked better than expected and some things looked worse. Today's gonna be a big day of processes, cleaning, and then starting to finish some of the parts that I'm gonna be keeping in use for the project. So the tank on the Hawk was absolutely thrashed. We got some work done on the outside, but there's a lot of rust on the inside. And before I can even think about what a clean carb is gonna do to this thing, I needed to make the fuel system clean. So what I have here, gallon of vinegar, 3 feet of dog chain. I'm gonna fill it up. I'm gonna drop this chain in, and over the course of the day, I'm gonna let it sit, shake it forward to back, up to down, left to right, until it gets to a point when I no longer see any corrosion on the inside of the tank. I'm a little winded from that, to be honest. So what we have here are the exhaust components that we're gonna reuse for the Hawk. One of my favorite things to do with pieces is refurb them to a like-new condition, because most of the time the person seeing it will never be able to tell. We're working with stainless components here. You can tell it's stainless versus mild steel because it's non-magnetic, and we're gonna bring this to a bright brushed finish. Now you can achieve this multiple different ways. You can do it with a hand pad, with a lot of elbow grease, as they would say. And I quickly evolved from that to using a drill with a Scotch-Brite attachment, which makes the job even more painless. And then now I've gotten to the point where I actually use a disc on a buffer so I can make long passes and make a lot of work just with a little bit of effort. Best modifications in a bike build are the ones you can do for free. It looks exactly how I want it to, perfect brush sheen with a little bit of polish, and it's gonna look awesome on the Hawk. Here's the before, here's the after. I mean, this is a stainless steel race exhaust at this point. And then last step is always, especially before you start the bike, because you can totally burn your thumbprints in. Keep it lubed up and oiled, let it smoke off in the first heat cycle. Relatively, the finish is all about the same. This is what I prefer now, but if you have a little time and effort, you can basically do this for free and then make a huge upgrade on how your current ride or your project build is going. From this point forward, we have a little bit more work to do before we start reassembly. A lot of the large components are disassembled, but I have to prep a lot of them for coatings as well as make sure the fit is proper, because once I start painting and coating, I can't go backwards. The way the steering stem fits, they ground into the frame to make steering stops that fit properly, and they're uneven, asymmetrical, and I just can't have that. So I'm gonna go in with a Dremel, I'm gonna clean up a nice solid face on the steering stops so I get an 1/8 inch of clearance between the fork tube and the frame. This is one of those jobs that slow and steady wins because you only have one frame to work with. So what I'm gonna do is just start sanding. So I'm experimenting a little bit with the RC motor. For what it's gonna cost to rebuild this completely, I've decided to just give it a spa treatment instead. Valve clearance, compression, looks good to go. After I paint the motor complete, I'm gonna pull the valve covers and the side covers, replace the gaskets, put a new clutch pack in, and then I'm gonna Cerakote those covers. The deconstruction has ended and the reconstruction begins. I got a couple things as far as smaller pieces out of the way, some painting here and there for things that won't be receiving Cerakote. Quite a few more big days ahead in the build process, but at least we know we won't be taking things apart anymore. Big step forward today in the project. Well, hey, surprised to see you there. Good morning. I needed a bigger option for a Cerakote oven for the frame and wheels. It may not be the most scientific, but all we need to do is get it around 200 degrees for an extended duration of time, and I think we'll have ourselves the perfect solution to keep the Cerakote out of the house. I'm gonna get this all painted up and then I'm gonna walk the oven to the frame. We'll see how it goes. For 20 bucks and the use of my heat gun, I have this thing holding 225 and it should cure up the Cerakote just great. So today was about as long as the day can get. It was a friendly reminder about how complex the street bikes are, but I'm super happy with how all the Cerakote turned out. The homegrown oven worked perfectly. A few more things I'd like to go into this evening with the black oxide treatment for all the hardware, and from that point forward, we can get this thing up on 2 wheels. So it's a big day for me today on the RC project. We're gonna start off rebuilding the forks. I'm gonna get tires and wheels prepped, so hopefully by the end of today I can at least get the frame on the motor and maybe get this thing up on 2. Triple digit heat outside, it's a cooker in here, but at this point it's what I live for. I'm just excited to get this thing back to rolling. So the majority of the component assembly's all done. We finally get to put the frame on the motor. My buddy Alex just got here from Patina Motorworks to give me a hand, getting everything all lined up. And if everything goes as planned, we'll have this thing up on wheels by this evening. Early morning and heading down to the folks at Saddleman. Mike Woolley is going to give me a hand with a front number plate headlight setup for this thing. And he's really just a master of that type of aluminum work. So anytime I can soak up some of that skill and work on something together, I'm super thankful. So looking forward to bringing this thing back with a headlight and just one more piece of that puzzle as we get this thing closer and closer to ripping. Good, Mike. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that'll be great. So last minute list of some things that are still needed. You know, I still have about a week and a half time before I have this thing painted, prepped, and ready to rock and roll. Gonna transfer these over to the build sheet, but get them ordered today so they're on their way. So we're getting to the final days here on the Project Hawk. We're gonna start the day getting the rest of the paint work done. I'm gonna get the carbs fuel pump and then the wiring harness on this thing. That's not my favorite process. It's definitely slow going, but we're only days away from chasing canyons, so it's gotta be done. So I wasn't able to get new intake boots for the Hawk, but a quick trick when they're dry and old like this is if you just give them a little silicone spray, it just makes this whole process of trying to sink them on in there a whole lot easier. Just like that. That's good. Now we just need some cables. So this thing had a whole bunch of wiring gremlins, and some of them are aesthetic and some of them are running. But the one thing I'm gonna do here, instead of just wrap electrical tape around it, I'm gonna give this a fresh cut. This right here is a little pin set. I think this is $5. And what it allows you to do is push the detent on each connector end so that you can remove the connector. I'll cut the sheathing off. So Project Hawk is coming to a close. Just getting the last few details taken care of, bleeding the brakes, little pieces of hardware, graphics. What do you think? You want to sit on it? Slippery. That seat's grippy. Can you reach? Can you reach? Vroom, vroom, vroom. Had a love-hate relationship with this build because it's been humbling and a lot more difficult than, say, the CT or the two-stroke projects we've been doing. A lot of what you're seeing is also me trying a new process for the first time and hopefully making progress every single time. But when it comes down to it, I'm stoked on how it turned out. I cannot wait to take this thing to the canyons.
Best part about the canyons is it's just you and the bike. Really, there's nobody else out here. You get to zone in on everything that you're feeling, if it's on or off the motorcycle, and it provides a perfect environment to do that. That's one thing I always enjoy, so building a bike to help enjoy that feature is, you know, something I couldn't be bummed about whatsoever. If the Hawk taught me anything, it's that if you strive for perfection, like I try to on all the builds, it'll definitely beat you up. There's a couple little things here and there that I may address in soon time, but overall, as far as this thing rides, it's excellent. It's a little knife out in the canyons, and I can't wait to be spending more time out here. The first shakedown went great, and low budget fun is what these lightweight bikes are about, and I'm gonna find myself in the canyons on this thing all winter.